Mark never believed that one ordinary morning could change anything. Mornings were all the same to him: gray sidewalks, tired faces, the smell of cheap coffee, thoughts about a future that felt distant and undefined. He stood at the bus stop scrolling through nothing in particular, half awake, half annoyed at the world. Then he noticed her. She wasn't loud. She wasn't trying to be seen. She stood a little apart from everyone else, wearing headphones, holding a book like it was something fragile. When she looked up, their eyes met for less than a second, yet something inside Mark shifted. It wasn't excitement. It was silence, the kind that suddenly feels important. Mark spent the entire ride pretending that nothing had happened. He told himself he imagined it. People pass each other every day, faces blur, moments disappear. But 2 days later, in a small cafe near the university, he saw her again. Same calm posture. Same focus. This time he noticed the way she smiled at the cup in her hands, like she was thinking about something kind. His heart beat faster, not from courage, but from fear. Still, he walked up to her. When she told him her name was Sofia, it felt strangely familiar, like he had known it long before hearing it. They talked longer than either of them planned. About books, about the city, about how sometimes life feels too loud. Mark was surprised by how easily the words came. Sofia listened without interrupting, without rushing to respond. When she laughed, it wasn't forced, it was quiet and real. When they finally stood up to leave, neither of them wanted to say goodbye. So they didn't. They said, "See you," instead. They didn't rush into anything. They met again, and then again. Walks turned into habits. Coffee turned into long conversations. Sofia didn't like being pushed, and Mark sensed that. He never asked for more than she was ready to give. Sometimes they walked in silence, and it felt just as meaningful as talking. For the first time in a long while, Mark wasn't trying to impress anyone. He was just being present. Sofia carried her fear quietly. She smiled, joked, listened, but when things felt too close, she pulled back. Mark noticed it in the smallest details, the way she changed the subject, the way she avoided certain questions. One evening, sitting on a cold bench under dim streetlights, she finally admitted it. "I'm scared of trusting," she said softly. Mark didn't promise anything big. He only said, "I'm not going anywhere." And for her, that mattered more than any promise. The rain started suddenly. They ran, laughing, soaked and breathless, hiding under a building entrance. The city blurred around them. Sofia looked at Mark, unsure, vulnerable. He didn't move closer. He waited. When she leaned in first, the kiss was clumsy, uncertain, and perfect. The rain kept falling, but neither of them noticed. Something real had begun. Love didn't erase Mark's problems. Life pressed harder, responsibilities, doubts, exhaustion. He became quieter, more distant without meaning to. Sofia felt it before he admitted it. The warmth was still there, but it flickered. She asked questions. He gave tired answers. Neither of them wanted to hurt the other, but silence slowly replaced laughter. The argument started over nothing and turned into everything. Words were sharper than intended. Emotion spilled out unfiltered. When Sofia said the word pause, it hung between them like something alive. Mark wanted to take it back, to fix everything immediately, but he didn't know how. They walked away in opposite directions, both pretending they were strong enough to do so. Days passed without messages. Nights felt longer. Mark opened their chat 100 times and closed it again. Sofia replayed every moment, wondering where things went wrong. The silence hurt more than shouting ever could. They missed each other not just as lovers, but as the one person who truly understood. Sofia tried to convince herself that this was how things end, quietly, without closure. Mark sat alone in his room, staring at the ceiling, realizing that loving someone also meant risking losing them. Neither of them knew that this was not the end, only the first real test. They didn't plan to see each other again. That was the cruel irony. Mark was walking without direction, hands in his pockets, head full of thoughts he couldn't silence. Sofia stood at the same bus stop, staring at the road like she was waiting for something she didn't believe would come. When Mark noticed her, he stopped. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The city noise filled the space between them. Finally, Sofia whispered, "I miss you." Mark exhaled like he'd been holding his breath for days. They sat at a small table in a cafe they used to visit, the familiarity both comforting and painful. This time there were no jokes, no pretending. Mark admitted how lost he had felt, how pressure had slowly shut him down. Sofia confessed how scared she had been of losing herself again. They didn't interrupt each other. They didn't defend themselves. For the first time, honesty didn't feel like a weapon. They didn't promise forever. They promised effort. Being together again felt different, softer, more careful. Mark paid attention in new ways. Sofia allowed herself to lean in, just a little more. They knew the cracks were still there, but instead of ignoring them, they walked around them together. The opportunity came unexpectedly. A job offer. Another city. A chance Mark couldn't ignore. When he told Sofia, her smile froze for a second before she recovered. "I don't want to be the reason you stay," she said. Mark nodded, but the thought of leaving her felt heavier than any suitcase. They spent the night together without trying to make it perfect. No big speeches. No dramatic goodbyes. Just lying side by side, listening to each other breathe. Sofia traced circles on Mark's hand, memorizing the feeling. Mark stared at the ceiling, wondering how love could feel so full and so fragile at the same time. Distance changed everything. Messages replaced touch. Calls replaced presence. Some days felt manageable. Others felt unbearable. Misunderstandings grew easily when you couldn't look into someone's eyes. Mark tried to stay strong. Sofia tried not to overthink. Both failed sometimes. There were nights when Sofia cried alone, wondering if this pain was worth it. There were mornings when Mark questioned whether love should feel this hard. Friends gave advice. None of it helped. Love at a distance required faith, and faith was exhausting. One argument nearly ended everything. Words typed too fast. Assumptions made too easily. Silence returned, heavier than before. Sofia stared at her phone, finger hovering over the screen, thinking this might be the moment she lets go. Mark wrote a long message, deleted it, then finally sent only one sentence, "Please don't disappear." They talked for hours that night. Not as lovers fighting to win, but as two people afraid to lose. They admitted how close they had come to giving up. Saying it out loud changed something. Love didn't feel lighter, but it felt real again. Mark came back without telling her. He stood outside her door, heart pounding like it had on the first day. When Sofia opened it and saw him, she didn't ask why. She didn't ask how long. She just cried and held him like something precious that. Being back together didn't magically fix everything. Mark stayed, but life didn't slow down. Work demanded more. Reality crept in quietly. Sofia noticed how careful they both had become, as if one wrong step could break something fragile. Love was there, undeniable, but now it carried memory, and memory made them cautious. Sofia often caught herself holding back happiness. She smiled, laughed, kissed him, yet part of her waited for the moment he would leave again. Mark felt it in the pauses, in the way she sometimes pulled away without explanation. "You don't trust me," he said one night. "I do," she answered honestly. "I just don't trust fate." Someone from Sofia's past reached out. A name she hadn't said in years. He didn't ask for anything. He just reminded her of who she used to be before heartbreak made her careful. The message alone was enough to stir old emotions, not love, but fear. Fear of repeating pain. Sofia told Mark. Her voice shook, but she didn't hide anything. Mark listened in silence, fighting the familiar sting of jealousy. This time, he didn't explode. "I'm not scared of him," he finally said. "I'm scared of losing you." Sofia took his hand. "Then don't leave," she whispered. There were days when love felt heavy. No drama. No fights. Just exhaustion. Moments without "I love you." Evenings without closeness. Sofia wondered if this was how love slowly ended, not with pain, but with silence. Mark wondered the same, staring at her while she slept. Mark realized something had to change, not in words, but in action. One night, he spoke clearly. "I won't promise perfection. But I promise presence. If you walk away, I'll respect it. If you stay, I'll fight for us." Sofia cried, not from sadness, but relief. Someone was finally choosing openly. They talked until morning. About childhood wounds. About expectations. About the fear of being too much and the fear of not being enough. For the first time, they didn't try to fix each other. They simply listened. And listening felt like love. Love changed shape. It became calmer. Safer. They built routines, shared small joys, learned when to speak and when to hold hands instead. The storm passed without a dramatic ending, only understanding. This wasn't the love from movies. It was better. One evening, Mark asked Sofia to sit with him. No crowd. No music. Just honesty. He held a small box, his hand steady. "I don't promise an easy life," he said. "But I promise that you won't face it alone." Sofia didn't let him finish. "Yes," she said, smiling through tears. Time passed. They returned to the same bench where everything had once started, two strangers sharing silence. Sofia rested her head on Mark's shoulder. The city was gray, unchanged. But they were not. "Do you remember how it began?" she asked. Mark smiled. With silence. She closed her eyes. This time, the silence wasn't empty. It was home.